Hello UK fans, Madarans here, and welcome to a deck profile with Qliphort of Demise. This is a deck I've been playing on my channel this week, and I like it, but I absolutely hate it at the same time, just because of the degeneracy that this deck has currently, thanks to Card Demise. This has come out today. I actually pulled one today, which is good. I'm even tempted to play this at regional, just because it will be very unexpected and would be quite a blowout to a lot of decks. Like, for example, PK Fire, which will be screwed over by lose one turn. Mask of Restrict will be in the side deck to screw over Monarchs. And again, lose one turn to screw over Draco Pals. And for rogue decks, we've got Skill Drain, which is going to make my beat sticks ever so powerful. And say if I was going against Deathblot, this would screw them over and probably show me a game as long as they don't have a Twin Twister, and I didn't have a Dark Bribe at that time. But the deck had lost a lot of power. Qliphort had lost a lot of power after that ban list that killed Scout to 1 and banned a popular board Towers. But the deck can now regain meta limelight due to Card Demise, which allows you to draw an additional 3 cards if you have no hand, or 2 more or 1 more, depending on what you have in hand at the time, only sacrificing your special summon and your damage that turn, or later on that turn, because you can still beat down, do some damage, and then do Card Demise during main phase 2. It allows you to, at the strongest point, to set up with a, say, Qliphort Stealth and 5 back row and scales, or at least 1 scale in the form of Qliphort Scout. That would be your great opening with Card Demise, and that's what it can ensure, essentially. This deck runs a lot of traps, 16 traps to be exact, that can more or less screw with your opponent and control the game and turn it quite degenerate. This deck takes little to no skill. It's less skilled than Monarchs, but more skilled than FTKs, such as Chain Burn or Exodia. So let's go into the deck, and I'm surprised they actually got some nice reception, because I thought this would be absolutely hated, and it actually isn't, surprisingly. So we have 1 Qliphort Scout. It's at 1, we can't run anymore. It's our Searcher, pay 100 memes all day long. Then we have Qliphort Monolith. This is an additional additional draw engine by tributing our Qli monsters. Plus it's a 2400 beat stick if we tribute to summoning. Then we have 2 Qliphort Stealth. Qliphort Stealth, when it is tribute summoned, can bounce back 1 card on the field. I believe it's either player's field. I haven't actually read his effect more or less, but it is 1 card on the field. Your opponent cannot activate cards in response to Qliphort Stealth's effect, unless Qliphort Stealth is like Chainlink 2, which no Qliphort player should actually do. But it will be the last effect, and he will screw over all chaining effects to stuff like Qliphort Carrier or Qliphort Helix when they are tributed. Stealth is one of the best beat sticks that we can have in the deck, and if we negate its effects, it's 2800, very nice. When it's independent scales, all clean monsters gain 300 attack, which can be alright to help you recover from a Card Demise, so you don't want to discard this Stealth. Then we have 1 Shell. Qliphort Shell allows you to attack twice with it and inflict piercing damage, which is nice. I'm actually just going to check that because I haven't read these effects. I usually use them just as beat sticks. Yes, piercing damage and double attacking, which is pretty good. And all opponent's monsters lose 300. This is like the generic scale effect of 9, and generic scale effect of 1 is of please gain 300 attack. So it's controlling your opponent's attack, making sure they can't beat over your big boss monsters. And then 1 Qliphort Disc to mass special summon Qliphorts from your deck and try and OTK your opponent. I run it as a ratio of 2, 1, and 1 just to give me some utility with piercing damage depending on my matchup. To special summon when I have like skill drain on the board, or about to flip skill drain on the board I should say, or about to activate my Clipper launch, and stealth for when I need just a bounce essentially, and I don't want to be killed by a solemn strike. So stealth is the best, but these utilities can be quite nice too. Then 1 Qliphort Helix and 2 Qliphort Carrier. Helix, when tributed, destroys a spell trap on the field, and Qliphort Carrier bounces back a monster on the field. Qliphort Carrier is more applicable than Helix because we're in more or less monster orientation at the moment. There is a lot of spells and traps, well, there's less traps than spells, but Qliphort Carrier is more likely to gain more plus than a Helix in that sense. If you would like to run like Stormforth in the deck, you would probably bump this up to 3 and this up to 2, and then probably take these 2 out, because you have to run a really restricted monster lineup in order to gain the maximum plus from Qliphort of Demise. So that is why I've got 9 monsters in this deck, 2 scales, which are generally going to be used as scales, and then 7 beat sticks. Perfect amount of numbers from my point of view. Then we have the spells. Triple Qliphort of Demise comes out in the Millennium Pack today, and you draw cards until you have 3 cards in your hand. Your opponent takes no further damage this turn, and you can't special summon this turn. You can only activate 1 per turn, and during the end phase, send your hand to the graveyard. But since you're running a heavy trap and spell lineup, you can basically set your hand and not lose anything from discardation thanks to Qliphort of Demise. So this deck can gain one of the best pluses. Other decks that can utilize this are decks with artifact engines or Yosenju, which can time their bouncing back to hand after Qliphort of Demise results. So very good for this deck, increases its speed and allows you to self-fire back row. Then we have triple summons out to Search that Scout. Scout is our searcher, so we have to get it as soon as possible. So it does sometimes mean we have to dead draw Summoner's Arts. You can also search as Monolith, which is the alternative, because if you're just having 1 Scout in the deck and no Monolith, you will have 2 dead Summoner's Arts. You might as well have another normal target. 3 Pot of Duality. Pot of Duality sometimes clogs in certain decks. That Magician from yesterday's stream showed me having like 3 Pot of Dualities on top of my deck. Well, it's not the best position, but Pot of Duality does speed up the deck. We don't special summon hardly ever, only pendulum summoning, and that's when we've got our scales intact. Usually we just a beat down deck, don't even need to tribute summon. Who tribute summons nowadays? So Pot of Duality can definitely gain us a lot of plus. 3 Forbidden Chalices, easily negating monsters' effects, making a stealth like a 3200 beat stick, or negating the effects that are going to cause you hazard problems like Traptrix Rafelsia, Titanic Galaxy, all those kind of monsters. And it also stops engines like Monarch going off, like for example Aether. So Forbidden Chalice, very good. Particularly when we don't have skill tree at 3, Forbidden Chalice can easily make up for this. Then we have 1 Sacrifice, another searcher for the deck, searches any clean monster when it's sent from the field to the graveyard. When the clean monster is equipped with this card, it can't be destroyed by battle, and is treated as 2 summon tributes for a Qliphort summon, which is very good, as you can just set it onto a carrier and search out stealth, and you don't need to waste too much resource to do so. Plus, if you equip this to a big beat stick, they have to get around it with card effect, and you probably blocked out their main offense with lose 1 turn or skill drain. So it can make something really powerful that they can't be over, which is very good. Unfortunately, it's at 1 in this deck because the badness. Then we have 2 Necro Valley. Necro Valley is a meta side at the moment. Well, it's very good at the moment, I should say. It stops Cosmo from banishing themselves to float. It stops PK Fire from banishing their Phantom Knights or their I won't say Burning Abyss, but yeah, Phantom Knights, so they can't gain their pluses, and it will screw them over. It stops the engine from really going off. And Necro Valley also screws over Monarchs, which can't banish their Pantheism to gain their Stormforths, which is good as well. It's also good against some rogue decks, depending on the matchup. So it's a good 2, but I don't think we need Terraforming to search it out. Maybe side Terraforming and another field spell that could screw over your opponent, like Semi-Limit Zone in the future. But right now, Necro Valley is quite good. Then we have one Climate Change. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep this in the deck going forward. I might take it out for something like MST or Twin Twisters, just because we don't really need to resolve this. We don't need to add the Qliphort Scout back to the hand. We can work as a full-on beatdown deck and don't even need the Scout. It's good when we have the Scout, but we don't really need it. So Climate Change isn't really painful, isn't really needed in this deck, unlike a normal Qliphort deck. Then we have one Clipper launch, which is kind of like their protection. They never really use this card in Qliphort to a vast extent, but essentially it makes your Qliphort unaffected by other spells or traps. Till the end of the turn, they also gain 300 additional attack if they've been normal summoned, and their effects are negated, which is also very good because this is a pseudo skill drain / forbidden chalice for the deck. I would probably sign an additional copy of this for depending on the matchup. If you suspect something like PK Fire is going to be using a hell of a lot of Fog Blades, maybe some Phoenix Chains around there in a rogue deck, Clipper Launch can protect against that. And depending on other things like Mirror Forces, this could definitely protect against. Then we have two Rippling Mirror Force. This isn't legal in TCG at the moment. The alternative is Storming Mirror Force. Does more or less the exact same, and probably would be a better version until we get Rippling Mirror Force. Rippling Mirror Force shuffles back monsters when you are direct attacked, only attack position monsters, and it can only do the direct attacks, which has utility since we have a very short monster lineup. We don't really have the issue. We have the issue of having no monsters on the board. Rippling Mirror Force can make up for that, whereas Storming Mirror Force can do it when any of your monsters are attacked or when you direct attacked and bounce them back to the hand. So I would use Storming Mirror Force while we don't have Rippling Mirror Force in the TCG, but when we do, I will be switching up Rippling, obviously. Let's put that back on table. Then we have one compulsory evacuation device to annoy people that are bringing out Castell while we don't have floodgates on the board. Vanity's Emptiness, because it's a pendulum deck that doesn't orientate around special summoning. Vanity's Emptiness screws them over because our Qliphort monsters are going to the extra deck and not the graveyard. So Vanity's Emptiness soft locks there. Triple lose one turn. It's a great floodgate if you can draw on special summon monsters. During the turn they are special summoned, it negates their effects and switches them to defense position. The secondary effect to switch it to defense position activates, whereas the primary effect is a passive effect. A bit like Skill Drain at this point. I'm not sure how it's ruled. I think it is more or less ruled like Skill Drain now, but I could be wrong. You would have to check with a judge beforehand or check the Yu-Gi-Oh! Wiki pages. They probably would have something on it. Or depending if it's had a wording change. I'm not 100% sure. But essentially lose one turn screws over like Castell, something on the board, which are going to be just 1/500 defensive position monsters, break swords that are going to be coming on the board. And it can also help you as you'll be able to when you pendulum summon your monsters switch to defense. You can't do anything with them, but their effects are negated, so there'll be 2800 B6 if they survive a turn, so that's very good. Then we have one Skill Drain. Well, Skill Drain is at 1, so we can't take skill out of the game 100%, but we can do it when we top deck this card because it's so good. It negates all face-up monsters on the field's effects, as long as you're not chaining something like Mass Change Second to get rid of it off the field, or something like Illusion Magic that can get around Skill Drain. It's a small cost to pay for such a powerful card. 2 Solemn Strike, because Solemn Strike is at free in the TCG, we might as well have used some of it. I don't think free Solemn Strikes are necessary in this deck. It has a lot of back row already. It doesn't really need it. And we all know what Solemn Strike does. Triple Dark Bribe. Dark Bribe I've never used in a deck before, to an extent that is competitive. This is a more or less competitive deck. It can definitely screw over a lot of meta decks. But Dark Bribe essentially protects your Scout and gives them additional draw. They could already be clogged, and then they draw something further clogging. It doesn't minus too much. And I would also side in the card Magic Drain for pendulum matchups, or I was going to say PK Fire. I probably would side in for PK Fire too. For when they drop a Regeki, you can Magic Drain. They don't run many spells, and Pendulums definitely don't run many spells. So Dark Bribe could, Magic Drain could gain Feather Plus then a Dark Bribe. But in the main deck, because you have to calculate for all your matchups, Dark Bribe is a lot more effective. And then one Solemn Warning, because it's Solemn Warning, it's at 1 and it's quite good. Onto the extra deck, we have one Gyga Cowboy for burn damage, Abyss Dweller for PK Fire matchups, Daigusto Emerald to shuffle back, say Qliphort Scouts have been discarded. Qliphort Scout. Diamond Direwolf because it's an instant pop, Castell, it's also a shuffle back. I'm running a Utopia engine, which I should move this over there. Utopia engine just because there's not much I can really do. I generally don't use Utopia engine since I am a UKTCG player, and we don't have that in UKTCG legal at the moment, so we can't really use Utopia Lightning. But Utopia engine would be good for American players to use. Although you generally don't go into Exceeds in this deck, it's really not needed, because your beat sticks are beat sticks. They can work without. But Utopia engine with 4 materials is viable because you have enough space. Or XYZ universe targets, which is very viable too. Then we have Dark Rebellion Exceed Dragon, which is a further beat stick. Then we have Gimmick Puppet Giant Grinder for PK Fire matchups where they have to exceed the monsters on the field and you want to inflict burn damage. Felgrand for Monarchs, protect itself, or to out something like Utopic Future. Titanic Galaxy for Pendulums. Pain Gainer to overlay on top of Giant Grinder and clear away any monster that's under 2200 defense. And 1777 Sims, because it's a 4k beat stick that can't be destroyed by battle card effect by detaching material, and has a non-targeting banishment effect of special summon monsters on the turn it's not summoned this way. Very powerful, very underrated as well. As options for the side deck, when it comes into TCG, I will definitely be running Floating Ghost and Cherry Blossom in this side deck, because we have space for putting in Dante's, Beatrice's, Titanic Galaxies, Castells, you name it, we have space for it. Floating Ghost will definitely be very viable, and it's a very powerful side deck card. Then there's MST, probably switching Climate Change out for MST soon, but would definitely side the other two. Then there's more like Stormforth, which is a non-targeting allowance for tributing over Cosmo, very powerful. Then Clipper Launch for additional protection, which is searchable. Masco Strict for the Monarch matchup, don't need to explain that. Rivalry Warlord to screw over more or less everyone, because if you can only control one type, and yeah, that's kind of you screwed, particularly because we got machines versus something like PK Fire. If they have their Fiends, they can't bring out Dante or any of the Phantom Knights. If they have Warriors, they only can bring out Break Sword. If they have Dante on the board, they can't summon Burning Abyss or their Phantom Knights and Speed Warriors as well. So that 100% screws them over. It also annoys Cosmo players because they have to have a correct target in hand in order to tag out, and that would mean they would probably have to reveal this. So say they have a 5 on board, they have to reveal they have an appropriate target like Wicked Witch or Good Witch, and then tag her into a machine in order to get it off the effect. Although it's not good against something like Infernoid, which are in a mirror match. Then we have Shadow Imprisoning Mirror because we don't play Dark Monsters. Who plays Dark Monsters? And there's a lot of Dark Monsters in the meta at the moment. Cosmo and Phantom Knights are the main Dark decks, which this can screw over. It can also screw over Dark Lord trying to activate its effect to banish cards from our hand. And then Magic Drain, as I said, good against Pendulums. There is a lot of things you could do with this deck. You can upgrade up the stealths and minimalize these two, or up these and put in Stormfalls into the main deck. And it's flexible, but it's very degenerate. This is a deck, if you're in a bad mood, you can just play and laugh at your opponent when they can't really beat over a floodgate. Or if you're really tired and you don't want to think much, this deck works. It's very much Caveman Yu-Gi-Oh! But it has viability. Qliphort always being abused this way is annoying, but Yes, it is competitive as well. This Qliphort itself is more or less one of the top tier decks in the OCG at the moment. They may have skill drain at 3, but that isn't really the point of Qliphort being strong. It's the card demise giving the opportunity. Qliphort weren't that strong with skill drain at 3 without card demise before the ban list. So yeah, so thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this and want to see further content. Please leave your comments below if you've got suggestions for the deck or suggestions for my channel in general. If you want to see a deck update for the April ban list, tell me below in the comments. And if you want to see when I'm streaming, there is a link to my Facebook page where it has all the information. So thank you for watching. Mataran signing out.